Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Whick TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, today, the Department of War tweeted this out, and I want to read it to you guys, okay? I guess I can share it on the screen, too. Give me a second. Share screen. Make it a little bigger so you guys can see. Actually read it. Okay, and I want to read out this official statement from the Department of War. Okay? It says this. Official statement. The Department of War has received serious allegations of misconduct against Captain Mark Kelly, U.S. Navy, retired. In accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice, 10 U.S.C. Section 688, I'm assuming that's a section, and other applicable regulations, a thorough review of these allegations has been initiated to determine further actions, which may include recall to active duty for court-martial proceedings or administrative measures. This matter will be handled in compliance with military law, ensuring due process and impartiality. Further official comments will be limited to preserve the integrity of the proceedings. The Department of War reminds all individuals that military retirees remain subject to the UCMJ for applicable offenses and federal laws such as 18 U.S.C. subsection 2387 prohibit actions intended to interfere with the loyalty, morale, or good order and discipline of the armed forces. Any violations will be addressed through appropriate legal channels. All service members are reminded that they have a legal obligation under the UCMJ to obey lawful orders, and that orders are presumed to be lawful. A service member's personal philosophy does not justify or excuse the disobedience of an otherwise lawful order. Today, me and Old School here are going to be talking about the ad that has gotten Mark Kelly in trouble. And we're going to be debating about whether or not the Democrats in that ad committed sedition. Old School, why don't you tell people who you are, introduce yourself, and kind of introduce your argument here, and then we can get into it from there. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Old School. I am obviously older than most streamers. I'm a biostatistician who just received his bioinformatics degree, and I have 10 years of teaching experience. I consider myself a conservative liberal, meaning that I value liberal values and want to defend and protect them. Okay.
Okay, and why do you think that this? Do you want to watch the ad first, or how do you want to do this?
Well, I was kind of thinking that I wanted to come at it at this whole event and both sides. This whole event is embarrassing, and both sides are just acting extremely bad, extremely poorly. I think the initial ad was bad. I think the president's response was bad. I think they just have blown this out of proportion, both sides, and they should have just maybe could have done better, if you understand what I mean.
I mean, like, look, if your argument is that we could be better, sure, but I take issue with your framing of the ad, the initial ad, as problematic or bad, as you called it. I don't think that there was anything wrong with the initial ad. I think the initial ad was perfectly fine, and I think that the fault is in Republicans trying to paint this as sedition when it just simply isn't. Yeah, that's my stance. Why don't we watch the ad so everyone understands what we're talking about, and then we can get into it from there. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Can I say one thing before we get
to the ad? Of course, go ahead.
If the ad had remained just telling service members that they have the right to defy or refuse unlawful orders, and we have your back, I think it would have been okay. But they went much, much further than that, and the ad will show that.
Okay, well, let's look at the ad and find out. And give me a second. Share my screen. Hopefully everyone catches this and can see all my stuff. Great. Awesome. Let's hear it.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris Deluzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
Who take risks each day
To keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military,
And intelligence community professionals.
against American citizens.
like us. You all swore an oath.
To protect and defend this
Could they
Constitution.
not get her
Right
to the
now?
studio or something?
Say it one more time.
Could they not get that one lady to the studio? Because all of them are in the same studio except for.
I don't
can't
know,
remember
man. we can debate the aesthetics of it later, but let's
Yeah.
continue.
Anyways,
The threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad.
But from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law.
Or our Constitution.
We know this is hard.
And that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
In the Army,
Our Navy.
The Air Force.
Your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
Our Constitution.
And who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Okay. What do you think? Go ahead.
well, what I think is the problem between the introductions they gave and the actual statement about you have the right and the duty to refuse unlawful orders is the problematic part, because they're not just saying TSA, public service announcement, you have the right to refuse orders. They're saying the administration, we can go over it again, but basically the administration is using the government to attack Americans. And that
Yes.
creates a stressful situation for any service member. And then they end it with an interesting line, don't give up the ship.
Mm-hmm. That's a reference to the Navy stuff, right?
Okay, so the Navy, that would be a reference that almost be like if there was a mutiny on. Or if
Yes,
there was,
that is absolutely the reference, that there's a mutiny going on and that we shouldn't allow unlawful orders to make us give up the ship. We shouldn't cede our leadership to unlawful orders. Yes, that's the implication.
So I'd like to expand we've already expanded the topic from the original topic that you talked about, and that is, in bringing in President Trump's statements. And President Trump's statements are problematic in the same way that I find this problematic. It's not, if you isolate a certain part of the original ad, or you isolate a certain part of one of Trump's responses, they're okay. They're a little extreme, but they're okay. But you add in that the administration is using government to attack Americans, and don't give up the ship. You're leading the soldier to think, oh, I've got to take action. I've got to be not only vigilant, I've got to hunt down situations where unlawful orders are being given in the military.
You should be doing that, yes, as a military person. You should be always vigilant and looking out on guard for potentially illegal orders. Yes.
But there's a difference between being vigilant, having your eyes and ears open and aware, and thinking that there's an active situation I've got to be attack, or an active situation I got to respond to. They're creating the situation that we live in this in a dictatorship where the president is actively attacking the populace using the military. And that's just not so.
So they are saying that the president is using the National Guard, I believe it was, in order to
You can replay it if you want.
Yeah, we can go. I think it was either the military or the National Guard. Either way, same thing, right? It's just factually true, right, that the President of the United States have used the National Guard and sent them to cities such as D.C. He wants to send them to places like Chicago. I don't know if he actually did to Chicago. He sent them to L.A. and things like that. The legality of that is in question, right? There is going through the courts right now. But the average, normal soldier, okay, that's not what they're being told to disobey, okay? They're being told to disobey illegal or unlawful orders. And this is straight from the UCMJ. The UCMJ tells you that you must disobey an unlawful order. Is that seditious to say?
No, it's not seditious to say you have to disobey and even report an unlawful order. Okay? And that's not my point. My point is, again, they're slipping in that language of the administration is using the military to attack Americans.
There is a high chance that Trump will do that, yes.
Okay, well, we don't know that because really a lot of what the talk about I've heard from people in the administration, I'm not connected, I mean like on the news. Is that
I get what you're saying. You hear it from the news and the media, etc. Go ahead.
He's using the military to protect ICE facilities. He's using the military like he did in 2000 in my city of, well, I'm not going to say my city, but my city, you know what my city is, where there were riots going on for 100 nights, and the federal courthouse was under attack like you wouldn't believe. Rioters were using 50,000 milliwatt lasers to blind federal employees. So what did he do? He moved, or I can't remember. No, he did. He moved federal troops to protect federal property.
I'm not sure if he did that or not, to be honest. But either way, it's well within his right to do that. That's not illegal.
Okay. So what he's doing is he's sending the military in to protect federal property. This time, the ICE facility, which the protesters are blocking, in furtherance of a policy of deportation that Trump, a democratically elected president, ran on, and that was one of the big issues he won on, was deporting these 10 million illegal aliens, or
sure.
What's the other word? I can't remember. It's
deporting illegal aliens, immigrants, whatever, right? I get what you're saying. How are you connecting this to the subject at hand, though? Okay.
Well, because if that's using the military to attack American citizens that these people are talking about, then that's basically saying refuse orders that are legal.
That's, again, they make it very explicit in the thing. Here's the issue. There are people, and I would consider this to be a justified concern. They are justifiably concerned that the Trump administration does not actually care about legality and might give orders in the future that would be illegal. Like, for example, one of the things that we know is Trump, again, asked Pam Bondi, hey, is it legal to just have them shoot the protesters or shoot at the protesters, I think it was said. Like, we know that there's a possibility that one of these orders can give it out. And we could say it might not be a high possibility, but I'll ask you this, right? Say you have a daughter and you know she's going to go to a frat party, okay? You tell her, hey, these guys might be cool, but just in case, we want you to, you should keep your drink covered, okay? Are you calling these people rapists? No. But what you're saying is there is a higher likelihood than normal that something bad's going to happen, so you should be extra vigilant. And that's what they're saying. That's not seditious to say.
But what if you told your daughter, well, this is a bad analogy, but I'm going to work with it.
I
you
like
told
the
your daughter
analogy, but go on.
that she's going to the Delta 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 fraternity. I don't know if that's an
I don't
official name.
fucking know fraternity names. Okay, I don't care, right? But you
Yeah,
know
I
what I
was
mean.
never
They go into a
I was
party. It
never
doesn't
a
have to
frat
be a
boy.
frat party. Any party at all.
But the members of Tri Delta are known rapists and have been sexually assaulting women at their parties in the past, and you didn't really have any evidence of it. You just said, "Well, I've heard a lot of things about these Tri Deltas that they like to get women drunk and slip things into their drink and get them in a back room somewhere. So you better be careful." It kind of changes it. That
No,
changes it from her being on
it's still okay.
awareness.
Even in that situation, even if you have misconstrued the Tri Delta frat boys who are really innocent angels, and you have painted them to be rapists, it's still good advice, and it's still not untowards to tell someone who's going to these parties, hey, just in case, cover your drink.
But okay, so this is why I think it's in my opinion, a poor analogy, because you're basically saying, going back to the actual situation, they're saying without doubt, without oh, we've heard it, or there's rumors, or it could possibly happen. They're saying it clearly that this administration is using the military to attack Americans. And what that does is it sets these people. Let me ask you one question before I go on. Do you think the average soldier has 100% awareness of what an illegal order is?
Of course not.
But
But we are given training on what they look like, right? When you're in the military, you are given regular training on examples of illegal orders, things that violate the constitutional rights of the people you're being ordered to act against, or your constitutional rights. There's a whole host of lists. There's like a list of 7 different things that you're to look out for. And the reason we do this on a regular basis, right? And this is what makes this whole thing so silly, is every single time before you go out for a deployment in the military, you are given training for this, right?
Mhm.
You are told specifically, and you have to sign off that you have been told, right? You have to acknowledge that you have received this training, right? And get it initialed and all that shit. They might do it electronically now. I don't know, right? But anyway, that you are not to follow illegal orders. And they say this for a very specific reason. It's because we've had incidents in the past where people have given illegal orders, and unfortunately, the troops followed them. There was an incident in Iraq in 2005 where 24 men, women, and children, one as young as 1 year old, was gunned down because a commander issued an illegal order to shoot them all. These privates, soldiers, whatever they were, I forget it was the Army or the Marines or whatever, right? They should have disobeyed that order. That was blatantly an illegal order. They should have disobeyed. Here's the thing. We want soldiers to question illegal orders. That's a good thing. We designed our military to do that.
So let me ask you a question, since you're ex-military, and this will come in a little bit. But when they advise you in this way, they tell you if you're given an illegal order to refuse it. But then what? Are you allowed to go talk to an army lawyer?
Well, you go to the JAG,
About some-
right? You go to the. What happens is, and under normal circumstances, and again, I want to be clear. Like I never got an illegal order. I was never ordered to do anything illegal in the military.
And most
The
soldiers
chances of
probably
you
don't.
getting an illegal order aren't very high. Okay, but the ramifications of soldiers, and the reason we stress this is because when we do get illegal orders, we want soldiers to say no. So, for example, the kind of the process that happens is, say you get an order, hey, I want you to go shoot that guy. What? Why? Right? That's just a dude. Like, say you see a dude just playing ball in the street, right? he's not doing anything wrong, and you're told to open fire.
Mhm.
The proper response is to say, "No, sir, I refuse that order." What happens next is there will be a trial, and the legality of that order will be found out, and it will be shown whether to be legal or illegal, and it'll be hashed out, and the circumstances around it will be done. But there are certain, again, orders that you can be given, which are things that you should say no to. And one of those is open fire into crowds or open fire on civilians. You should say no to that.
Okay. So a few things. Number one, I still think that they're setting up a situation where they're creating this feeling or this narrative that the military people are living in a dictatorship or a lawless society, and they have to be more than vigilant, right?
What does more than vigilant mean? What do you think that they're saying that does that like
Suspicious.
they should be suspicious? Is what's
Actively suspicious.
what's the difference between being suspicious and vigilant?
That you take the time to really think about every single order your commanding officer gives you to make sure that it's legal.
No one's okay. I understand we make jokes about military members being stupid sometimes, but most military members, look, we aren't stupid in that way. Let's say that, okay? We're crayon eaters. I know the Marines are crayon eaters and shit like that, but again, most of us aren't that stupid, okay?
You're not that stupid, but what happens if you've got a unit deployed
Mm-hmm.
and you're let's say you're a grunt, or maybe I don't know.
Sure.
You're a rifle carrier.
Yeah, you're just a bullet sponge. You're going around doing your things.
And your commanding officer says, "Go shoot that guy." Okay, well, no, under normal circumstances, you'd probably go shoot that guy.
No, it depends, right? Like if
But
you're
what if you're
if you're just randomly told to shoot a guy, tell them no. Like
no, but sometimes your superior officer has information that you don't have that he can't transfer to you in appropriate amount of time. So that guy he just told you to shoot might be somebody who's walking up, and somebody has confirmed that he's got a bomb
we
on
have
his back.
we have training on this, and there are steps you have to follow before you open fire. So you are given training. Like if a guy is approaching you and they might have a bomb or something like that, you say halt. Like there's rules of engagement on this, right? And I won't go through them all, but basically you say halt, stay where you are, and if they refuse to do that, then you are authorized to open fire. We have standing orders for this reason. Like you have a rules of engagement, and you're expected to follow those rules of engagement. If some officer comes up to you and is just pointing to a random guy and says, shoot that guy, you should absolutely question that. But that doesn't happen in the military. I'm just saying, like you aren't just told to just shoot people, right? There's very specific training you're given. You're giving a mission briefing before you go out. You're giving rules of engagement that you are expected to follow, right? You aren't just told to fire upon people just randomly. It just doesn't happen.
What if you're in a foreign country and your officer tells you to break into that house and get inside?
You're in a foreign country and you're told to break into private property. I would question that too. It depends on the context, though. Like, are you actively at war with this country? Right?
Yes.
There's context that has to be in play.
But the thing is that I'm operating under the assumption that even if we're at war with a foreign country, even when we were invading Iraq, even when the Israelis were in Gaza, you still have to protect civilians and civilian property. But what if your officer said, get into that building, break that door down, get into that building right now?
Again, it depends on context. Like, are you under fire?
What if you see an attack helicopter coming down and you've got seconds to get in there to get...
Oh, they didn't have attack helicopters, but I understand what you mean. Like,
okay, so you got a gang
if you are under duress, then again, it depends on the context of the situation. But you shouldn't just blindly. My point here is, sir, is that you shouldn't just blindly, and this doesn't happen. Don't blindly do shit like that, right? You need to have some context, and you should, and a good military man will be cognizant of the rules of engagement. And when you're asked to break those rules of engagement, you say no.
But my point is, in both of my analogies, which didn't work, obviously, so I'll just come out and say it again. You have a situation, even when the military is deployed in the interior, where you don't have the time to sit there and say, Mr. Commanding Officer, sir, here's my 6 questions about the situation that you just ordered us to do. Sometimes you just have to say, it looks good, or the order looks good. There might be some questions I have later, and I'm just going to obey it. But if you have these people saying the administration is actively using the military against American civilians, you might slow down. It's a way of throwing sand into the gears of the military. And there's another reason that they did it, but we can get to that later.
Yeah, we can get to that later. Let's address this first. No one is, like, there has been no incidents of insubordination, right? No incidents, at least regarding to this ad, since this ad came out, of insubordination or disloyalty or soldiers refusing to obey their orders because of this ad. It just hasn't materialized, right? And we know this, right? Because if it had, they would be shouting this from the rooftop. They would be like parenting this out, megaphoning this out across time and space. Okay, you'd be all over the social media. So obviously, this quote unquote attempt at sedition, it had no effect because, again, we can use Occam's razor here. They just meant it as a warning to say, hey, just be a little extra vigilant these days. Because, yes, we do believe this administration is going to do some fucky-wucky shit. So just remember, you took an oath to the Constitution. You took an oath. Obey your oath. There's nothing wrong with reminding people of that.
Okay, I still have trouble with the whole don't give up the ship and they're going to use the military against the Americans. But one thing I would like to point out also is that any kind of a legal order that originates from the administration is going to have to filter down through generals and majors and colonels and majors and blah, blah, blah. Most of the people who fill those roles, because Trump has probably has fired some generals, I know, but he's not just turned around and like swapped all the generals out for his loyalists and all the colonels and all the majors and all the captains and all the lieutenants. Most of those people who are there were there before him or are there after him, but are still very much professional people. So if you're like a lieutenant or a private or even I'd say a captain, if you're given an order, it's going to be with anything fucky-wucky that the administration wants to put in filtered out already. So already you've got these people who are now paranoid and suspicious about illegal orders, but they're not going to probably get them. And
I'm not here arguing that like there is a high chance of you getting an illegal order. You probably won't. As a military member, you're probably never going to hear an illegal order, right? You just won't get it. But it has happened before. It's happened recently, in fact, that through all of our checks and balances, we do give discretion to commanders on the ground, and those commanders will sometimes fuck up and give you illegal orders. Despite all the training, despite every single check and balance we have, there are times when, and we empower our officers to do this, right? And our NCOs to do this. Hey, you're the one on the ground, you're the one making calling these shots things, right? So we're gonna let you call the shots. And sometimes, despite all the training we give, they make calls that are illegal. And in those cases, you, the enlisted man, right, the working man, need to say no. You need to tell them, sir, I'm not firing on these guys. They're civilians.
Okay. But you're still going to have a sense of paranoia within the military. And let me get to the second part
Go ahead.
that we haven't gotten to yet. You're going to also create a sense of paranoia among the populace. Now, let me get to why I think this is one of the big reasons they made this ad.
Okay, so just for my clarity before you go on, is part of your argument, well, first of all, I want to read the super chat, but I'll get to it in a second. Is part of your argument tonight that them putting this ad out to the public is going to encourage the public? Is this part of your sedition argument, or is this different?
This is a different argument.
Okay, different argument. Okay, got it. I just want to make sure it wasn't connected. $10 from Natural Phenomenon to say, in no way is disobeying illegal orders the same as go on a witch hunt. I think this is called equivocation. The caller is trying to imply that Democrats are the party of violence. He's lying to everyone. Thank you, Natural. I don't think the caller is lying. I just think he's wrong. But go ahead.
Okay. So the second part has to do with, well, their success with the No Kings protests, which I think were very anti-democratic protests, by the way. One of the things you see if you look at American support across all parties, independents, Democrats, and Republicans, for deportations is that it went way up last year. I think it reached like 60% pro-deportations. And then after the No Kings riots, it went, and after the ICE raid started and the resistance against the ICE raid started, it went down. It went
Yes, approval for the deportations has dropped significantly. I disagree as to why, but go on.
And that is because, in my opinion, of course, you had the No Kings protests, which did, a lot of them turned into riots. You did have the ICE agents, a lot of the time they were attacked.
Just real quick, which No Kings protest turned into a riot?
In the summer.
Remember,
there's been 2 No Kings protests.
Yeah, there was 2.
The last one was pretty peaceful, pretty boring.
Yeah, I didn't see any riots the last one. Which one happened in the summer that you could consider a riot?
The ones in California.
Well, that wasn't a No King. Okay, are you talking about the protest in L.A. About the where they burned that Waymo or whatever? That wasn't a No Kings thing.
They did more than just burn a Waymo.
I know what you're talking about, but that wasn't a No Kings protest. That was different.
Okay, okay. I apologize. I'm wrong.
No, that's fine. It's just I was like, No Kings. They were pretty anti-violent actually. But yeah, no, I will just cop to the fact that there was violence and looting and burning in portions of that LA riot. That is true, but that wasn't the No Kings protest.
Okay. So, but there has been a lot of action and violence around ICE agents. Most of it, I contend, has been caused not by the ICE agents themselves. Some of it has been done by the ICE agents themselves, but most of it hasn't. That is what this kind of violence in the streets around ICE agents is what I think caused the support for deportations to plummet like a stone across all parties. And
can you connect that for me? Can you connect how the violence against ICE agents has dropped support for deportation? Just connect those dots for me.
Because Americans are now seeing violence in the streets on their TV connected to these deportations, and a lot of them are saying, this is too much to get the job done. Maybe we should just not do it this time.
I don't like that tends to be the opposite of how these things work normally. So normally when you see violence against cops, the support for cops actually increases. And we saw this during Black Lives Matter and other events. Like, support for policing actually has gone up because of all that, right? Because what
I said violence around the ICE.
Sure. But the reason I'm pushing back here is because if it, and I'm not denying that there has been violence against ICE agents, and I abhor it, I disavow it. We should solve our differences in different ways, right? I don't like ICE agents, right, and how they're acting right now, but that's not because of the violence being done against them. It's because we see video after video, article after article, report after report of ICE agents violating the law, right? And doing these kind of Gestapo-like tactics, and that the overarching violence around the ICE agents is being done by the ICE agents, and people don't like that. That's why support for deportation has plummeted.
The initial reports and the initial news report says, "Oh, the ICE agents kidnapped this illegal immigrant's child and held him in a car as bait." That was the AP, and then the AP looks at it a day later and says, "Oh, wait a minute. The illegal alien was playing with his kids, saw the ICE agents roll up, and ran." And the ICE agent said, "Oh shit, we got a young kid here, really young kid. Let's put him in the car to keep him off the street, and let's give him some water. Not use him as bait." And if you look at most events that the media is reporting on, where they say, "Oh, this ICE agents were acting like Gestapo," you find out, well, really the guy was somebody who kidnapped kids and molested them, and and he did fight back, and they did have to wrestle him to the ground. And it's like, you never should, in this kind of situation, in this kind of world we're in now, I would say in any world, never ever accept the initial reports of the media, because no matter what happens, if you've got a high energy situation where violence is involved, reporters are going to get it wrong, not because they're biased, but because they have a kind of a drive to get their story out first. They have a drive to make it a little bit sensational, so they're going to believe things that really don't add up when they're trying to get that story published. And then a few weeks later, you find out, oh, that wasn't the truth. These parts of, January 6th, where we heard that 6 people were killed at the scene, turned out to be one person was killed at the scene, one person collapsed because of drug use, and another person collapsed because of a heart attack. I've lived over 40 years in this country, and I've been watching these things happen again and again.
Here's a problem.
You'll have a really stressful event like 9/11, and you'll have some of these early reports, right? And then you find out, and that everybody believes these reports, and then later on they're like, that was all bullshit. That never happened.
Well, here's a problem though, is that I agree you should be skeptical of initial reporting. That is true. I agree. However, believing that the media always lies is just as silly as believing it is always tells the truth. I'll give you a recent example that happened just yesterday. We had pictures come in of some immigrant who was taken by ICE, put in a headlock, and wrestled to the ground in a restaurant. Initially, you had all these MAGA influencers, such as Lauren Chen, Jack Posobiec, a bunch of them, claimed that the picture showed that this man had a knife. Then you looked at the pictures, and because we got eyes, we can see, oh, that's a sleeve. That's not a knife. There was no knife. And they lied about it. They just lied about it. And then when that lie didn't work, because we got eyes, and there was obviously no knife in any of those pictures, they made up another lie and claimed that he was actually a child rapist. And they put a mugshot of the guy and showed that, oh, this is a child rapist. But then you go look and you see that, oh, that guy's a different guy who's still in jail, who was denied bond, and who's still in custody right now, that was arrested back in October. And so this kind of continuously lying thing isn't just in like the regular media. It happens with with all influencers and things like that on these side of things. They just will make stuff up and lie. And I would take issue with you saying that all these stories about mistreatment of immigrants just turn out to be false. There's a couple, but most of them have been, again, they've gone through the court systems, and they're being found to have, these ICE agents did act inappropriately.
Well, again, I didn't say all, I said most. And I'm not going to make excuses for people like Jack, how do you say his last name?
I think it's Posobiec, but don't hold me to that. I'm terrible.
I'm not going to make, that guy creeps me out. Most right-wing influencers, I'm not going to make excuses for, and I know that they are making the situation worse by adding fuel to their own fires. I think the only right-wing influencer I would probably believe initially would be someone like Ben Shapiro. And even he's made mistakes too. So
again, there's a difference between I get things wrong every once in a while, but then I correct it, versus I continuously just lie despite all the evidence. And I think that we all understand that there are people on both sides who do both of those things, right? There are people who are good faith actors on both sides. I'm not here to argue that they're not. But what I'm arguing today, to bring us back on topic a little bit, is that Mark Kelly, right now, he wasn't engaged in sedition. None of those Democrats up there did anything seditious in nature. Simply reciting the UCMJ and then saying, "Hey, we think that this administration might be giving you some fucky-wucky orders, so just pay attention, right? Make sure that they're not illegal." That's not sedition under any definition.
Well, we have a definition. Maybe we should.
Yeah, well, we do have a definition, right? And it doesn't meet the definition given by the UCMJ Code of Justice.
I would disagree with that.
Okay, well, then walk me through it. How does what they showed, that ad, unless you're arguing they did something different, right, that I'm not aware of, but I'm assuming you're just arguing that ad, what in that ad falls under the definition in the UCMJ of sedition to you? Please, go ahead.
Well, I'm trying to pull up the actual text of the UCMJ.
We can do that. Give me a second. I got the...
Code 894.
Here it is. So I'll just read it to you. We can stream it even. Hold on. So the audience can see a little bit. Oh, dear readers, I don't care. I don't care. Okay. So this is 10 U.S. Code, subsection 894, Article 94, mutiny or sedition. Any person subject to this chapter who, 1, with intent to usurp...
Okay, one second. Is a retired military person...
Yeah, he is subject to this. We agree to that. We'll just stipulate to the fact. Yes. I am still subject to stuff like this. Yes. So
I didn't know. I'm not military.
Yes. But yeah, even when you retire, you're still subject to certain, not all the codes, obviously, right? Did you know I don't know if they changed it, but when I was in there, you couldn't, like, sodomy was against the UCMJ.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which is silly, but yeah. So 1, with intent to usurp or override lawful military authority, refuses, in concert with any other person, to obey orders or otherwise do his duty, or creates any violence or disturbance, is guilty of mutiny. Okay. 2, with intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of lawful civil authorities, creates, in concert with any other person, revolt, violence, or other disturbance against that authority, is guilty of sedition. 3, fails to do his utmost to prevent or suppress a mutiny or sedition being committed in his presence, or fails to take all reasonable means to inform his superior commissioned officer or commanding officer of a mutiny or sedition which he knows or has reason to believe is taking place, is guilty of a failure to suppress or report a mutiny or sedition. A person who is found guilty of attempted mutiny, mutiny, sedition, or failure to suppress or report a mutiny or sedition shall be punished by death or such other punishment as a court-martial may direct. Now, Obviously, we're not being accusing them of mutiny, so we could just take that one out. Okay. 2, how did that ad meet this criterion? I want to read it again. With intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of lawful civil authority, creates, in concert with any other person, revolt, violence, or other disturbance against that authority. What revolt, violence, or other disturbance did they attempt to create?
Well, we're going to talk about 2, but I think he's more number 1. But
You think it's mutiny, so you think that he is engaged in mutiny.
with intent to assert or override lawful military authority.
You think that
You
that
agree
ad
that
was intending
you-
to override the lawful military authority? How?
Well, you agree that Donald Trump was legally elected, right? And so he's the lawful military authority, right?
Yes, but you understand that just because an order comes from the president does not make it a lawful order.
Okay, true, but this gets into the whole sand in the gears part. Override lawful military authority. Usurp would be a mutiny. Override would be more.
Usurper or override are synonyms in this case.
Okay. With intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of lawful civil authority, again, Trump is lawful civil authority, creates in concert with any other person revolt, violence, or other disturbance against that authority. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to basically make it hard for the military to carry out its duty of protecting the ICE agents and protecting the ICE facility.
And the way that you think that they are trying to make this hard is by reminding them that they have a duty to disobey unlawful orders.
After telling them that they are being used to attack American citizens.
Yes. If that's the case, though, then anyone who has ever posted or read aloud the section of the UCMJ or the section of any kind of instruction to disobey unlawful orders would technically be guilty of sedition. And that standard doesn't pass the smell test.
But no, because again, we're getting back to this whole situation.
If I hold on,
They're
if
not-
I went out,
they're
if I went
not
out, just real quick, please, real quick. If I came onto this show and said I think that Trump is a god awful president, I don't like his orders. I think there's a high possibility he's going to give you illegal orders. And if he gives you illegal orders, dear military, you need to refuse those orders. Have I just committed sedition?
Well, there's 2 differences between what you just did and what Mark Kelly and gang did. Number 1, you expressed opinions. They made statements of fact. They didn't
Hold
say,
on.
I think, we think that what Trump is doing is using the military to attack American civilians. They're saying that is a fact. And that's number 1. Number 2, I'm sorry to say, my friend, you're just a streamer. These are senators and congressmen, former officers of the military, former CIA officers, or at least one CIA officer.
Man, for those
They have
people
a lot of
I'd never heard of
authority.
in my
They
life.
have
Let's be clear.
authority. They
For
have a
those
lot of
people, I couldn't pick them out of a lineup. I know Kelly, and I know the other guy, Slotkin. Those are the only 2 I could pick out of a lineup. Those other people, I don't know who they are.
My point is that you offered opinion and you're a streamer. They offered statements of facts, and they have authority. So that creates in the mind of soldiers, hell, maybe I should be actively resisting my commanding officer.
They didn't tell them to actively resist their commanding officer. The instruction that they gave was to remember your oath, disobey unlawful orders, don't give up the ship. These are all things that people are told in the military over and over again through trainings, in basic, throughout your term of service. You're going to be told this over and over again. No one is committing sedition when they do this, even if they hate the president.
You think your commanding officer, when you ever got this, these PSAs about unlawful orders came and said, well, the administration is a fascist dictatorship, and they're going to be using us to suppress civilians, and oh, you have the right to refuse unlawful orders. No, they didn't say that.
Hold on. I've known officers in the military who hated Obama, and they made no joke about it, right? We understood, and they would tell us that. They thought Obama was doing illegal shit, and they would tell us that. They didn't commit sedition, though, because we all knew, right, that this was just part of the job. Part of your job as a military person is to make determination, right, if an order is obviously unlawful, and in those cases, that a reasonable person would expect this to be unlawful, your duty is to disobey. Now, you disobey at your peril, but you also obey unlawful orders at your peril. Because if you obey an unlawful order, your ass goes to jail. Like, your officer may be charged too, but you also will be sitting with him in that prison.
But when you're Obama-hating officers, and I think, as a side note, I think people in the military, if they have trouble with the administration, they should keep it to themselves, number one.
Look, that's neither here nor there. I agree with you on that, but that's a different thing than being a little unprofessional is a far different cry from being seditious.
But the thing is that, okay, I lost my thoughts there for a second. When your officers came in and complained about Obama, did they come in and say, that goddamn Obama, he's using us to oppress American people?
I don't know exactly what they said. It's been years, man. But it was very clear we knew where they stood. They didn't make it.
No, but in any way, did they say that Obama is using us, the military, to do illegal things?
I'm trying to remember. I don't think they used those words. No.
But that's what Kelly and Yang were saying. It says the administration is using the military to do illegal things against American citizens. You have the right and the duty to refuse unlawful orders. We'll have your back. Don't give up.
Well, no. They
That's
said,
sedition, in my opinion.
hold on, they said in the ad, and we can go back and look if you like, that the this administration are using the intelligence assets and the military personnel against American citizens. That is not necessarily an illegal thing to do.
I think it's pretty much implied in the against.
But again, we should use the military against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's in the oath. That's something we all understand. Now, again, that's not the same as shooting into a crowd of protesters or anything like that. But the military is there, and again, like it or not, if a domestic enemy came up, the military can and should, in certain conditions, be used against them. Now, that said, I don't think that anything that the Democrats are doing rises to that level. But there is a concern that Trump and his administration will try to paint it as that. And if they are to issue an illegal order where, for example, you are ordered to fire into a crowd of protesters, say no. I don't think that there's anything seditious in reminding the people of that, the American people and the military members, the intelligence agents, etc. If you are told to do something illegal, say no. And in fact, this statement should be said more often by politicians, right? I want them to, during Biden's administration, I want them to say shit like that. During Obama's administration, I want them to say shit like that. If a Democrat gets elected, hopefully in 2028, I want senators to remind the military personnel, hey, remember, you took an oath to the law.
Yeah, I have no problem with reciting the thing about unlawful orders, but I think this is the whole situation where I say screw both sides in this event is that they could have said it better. They could have said, we're in a situation where the administration will be using military and intelligence assets against certain Americans, or might be. But against Americans, it's a little broad. Now, if you want me to get into what I have trouble with Trump's statement, we can do that too.
I mean, like, I don't know if we'll have a disagreement there, but my issue with Trump's statement is that it is, and not just his statement, to be clear. I want to be clear. He's not just saying stuff. He's also, as the Department of War just did, he's issuing an investigation on these things. So he's putting his money where his mouth is in this case, right? It's a way to try to silence opposition. If you are worried that people telling the military to not follow unlawful orders is going to be a threat to your rule, that is telling on yourself. But you can tell me your problem with this statement. Go ahead.
With Trump's statement?
Sure.
Well, he went to, well, the big one it says that he said directly was, sedition is illegal. Sedition is punishable by being thrown in jail. And then he reposted somebody saying sedition is punishable by execution. I think he directly basically said that if these people are seditious, they're going to be thrown in jail. And I have a problem with that. Now, maybe it's because I'm an educator, and I'm a college educator, and I'm a college educator for undergraduate mathematics. But I pick my words very, very carefully. Because you could say things to an undergraduate math student, like a person in calculus or linear algebra, very stressful things for people to take, that you could just set them off. So I think I'm a person who chooses my words carefully. Okay. And I think both sides should have chosen their words more carefully. If Trump had come out and said, well, I think they have the right to say what they say, I think it's seditious, and there could be consequences for the sedition, I wouldn't have a problem with what Trump said. If Trump said, well, I think they're seditious and they could lose their intelligence ranking or whatever they call it, their intelligence clearance, I wouldn't have trouble with that. But bringing in linking to tweets about hanging and execution went too far.
And look, again, if that's all they did, fair, but they're actually going to try to bring up Mark Kelly on charges here for this statement. Well, let me ask you that. Should he be brought up on charges? Should Mark Kelly be charged under the UCMJ for sedition? Do you support that?
You know what I think he'd say? I think he'd say, sure, let's have at it. Because he knows that the people who are going to be deciding whether he's prosecutor or not are going to be professional JAG officers, and they're probably going to say, we're going to look at this to make sure the president's happy.
I'm with you on this. I'm with you on this. If I was Mark Kelly, I would be begging and creaming my pants with the fact that they're going to be charging me with sedition, and they're going to actually try to bring me to trial for this. This is going to help my political career so much, right? This is going to get me VP status at least, honestly. Because everyone just sees how crazy it is.
I don't think they're even going to charge him.
I don't think they're actually going to charge him either. And if they do, he's definitely not going to be found guilty. He doesn't break a single code here. Let me read some of these super chats, though. I've been neglecting them, and I want to get through them. Is that okay? Okay. $5 from the Darina to say, what makes a protest anti-democratic? Isn't protest one of the rights in the Constitution? Wouldn't protesting be more patriotic? I think that's to you, sir.
Okay, so, this is in reference to the No Kings.
Yep.
Right? So basically the No Kings, there weren't riots at the No Kings, but the No Kings, I think the inspiration for the No Kings was, of course, the deportation policy. And again, they are protesting against a democratically elected president implementing the policy that he won on. That's anti-democratic, especially if they get violent.
Well, obviously, if they get violent. But again, the No Kings protests, I don't think there was much violence, if at all. I will say this, that it is perfectly democratic in nature to express your displeasure at the current administration and what they're doing, even if they were democratically elected. Because democracy isn't, I'm democratically elected and then we're good and nothing ever changes. Obviously, we have elections on a regular schedule. And so part of protesting is expressing displeasure, trying to pressure the current administration to change their policies, and to try to change the public's perception of an event. None of this is anti-democratic in nature.
And calling it No Kings, because he wasn't acting as a king.
Well, that's the difference, is we think that he is trying to enact the will of the public the way a king would, and not the way a president would.
The way a president...
You could say they're wrong, but that's the logic behind the protest.
I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole on this, but a lot of what Trump has done is really try the boundaries of the executive power and win back some of the executive power that has been lost over the years. And that's something that conservatives have been complaining about for a long time. It's like, why can't the president do this? Why does the president not have this authority to do this? Why does the president have very little control over the federal bureaucracy? You know, kind of thing.
Well, that's the whole question, right? I think it's good that they have less control over certain things, right? I like limiting their power. And the reason we like limiting the executive power is because of where we came from. Remember, we fought a king. We didn't want kings. We wanted the opposite of it. And so we put, on purpose, restrictions on the executive's power. Now we can argue what those restrictions should be, but that's not neither side of that argument, really, is anti-democratic.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I did want to go...
There's more.
We could talk about the problems with the federal bureaucracy.
Okay, we'll get to it. But there's more super chats I won't get through, okay?
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. $5 from the Darina to say they are literally a year later trying to assert Thomas Crooks was trans and a furry by pretending to find his online social media. It's obvious lies. Thank you for the $5. $5 from Techlax43. Just so you stay consistent, Whick, are you okay with Republicans reminding Secret Service agents they can refuse orders given at any time? Yes or no? If that's the laws on the books, yes. I have no problem with anyone telling anyone the rights that they have as a citizen, as a military member, as a Secret Service member. I think we should regularly be reminded of our rights because that, again, acts as a bulwark against people who would take away our rights. So I'm fine with that. That's nothing wrong. Sam Greenwood for, what is this? NOK? What currency is this? I don't even know. For 59 of them, though, says, check out U.S. versus Keenan, 1969, Court of Military Appeals, a landmark case where the court held that a soldier has a duty to refuse an unlawful order. True. Yes. I didn't know the court case it was from, but again, I wasn't alive in 1969, so, it's what it is. And that's the super chats. Now, what did you want to say?
One of the things was about the super chat. Talked about the first Trump shooter, Crook, right?
I believe that's who it was. Yes, Taylor Crooks or whatever. I don't know too much about this guy, so
I've tried to find out about this guy. There is just not a lot of information on this guy, and what happens is, I think Crook was just nuts. Okay.
I think anyone who's shooting other people is kind of nuts.
I mean, like severely, like Jared Lee Loughner nuts.
Okay.
But there's he has really nothing that defines him other than he gave some money to the Act Blue and he registered for the Republican primary. His mother was a Democrat. His father was a Libertarian. That's it. So what happens is both people left and right, like Destiny keeps calling him a Republican, are filling that empty cup with what their own imagining.
That is a common tactic, yes. $5 for no Aeon. No Eon? Aeon? I'm trying, man. Says, I heard military personnel have two options. One, follow the order, or two, resign, but you can't just do neither one. Officers, often in protest of an order that they do not want to follow, will turn in their commission. They will resign. Yes, that is something that happens. However, I don't know too much about that because I'm an enlisted man, and I don't know officer world that well. But for an enlisted man, you can't just resign. You don't get to resign. You can't be like, I quit. That doesn't happen. So yes, you are instructed and have a duty to refuse an unlawful order. Okay, sorry about that, but yeah. As to your point about Crooks, again, I don't know enough about him to say much of anything. I tend not to like to play the game where we assign like blame for a whole party off of the actions of one individual. Like when the senator from what was it, Minnesota got shot, or maybe it was Michigan, I forget. I think it was Minnesota actually. When she got shot and her husband got shot, even though the guy was a Trump voter, I don't hold Trump voters responsible for what he did because he was crazy, right? And I think that too often people will weaponize these events and try to attack the whole other side and blame a lot of people for the actions of one crazy guy, and we shouldn't do that.
So you're going to be, I hope you're not upset with me saying this, but Mark Kelly, after Trump did his whole idiotic tweet storm, he came out and said something that I just think shows that he has very little integrity.
Can you link me that so we can read it together?
Well, actually, it's a video, but I'll just tell you what he did. It was he basically said, you know, my wife suffered because of a political assassination attempt. Jared Lee Loughner had nothing to do with politics as we understand them. He was beyond crazy. If you read his Wikipedia page, the reason he didn't like Gabby Giffords is that she either ignored him or mocked him when he asked a question, and the question was, how does government work in a world where words have no meaning? The guy was beyond crazy.
I have to, this is why I asked to see what he said, because I have to see what he said to have too much of an opinion. Thank you, a.k.a. Batauzai, for the 10 Whick TV gift memberships. $20 from Alexander Wren to ask this. Sorry, what additional power do you want the president to have? He's more powerful now than he has ever been in the history of this country. Congress needs to do their own jobs, not offload it to the president. And I'm assuming that's to you. So what does the president not have, or what power, I should say, does the president not have that you think he should?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I just use that as conservatives argue that the president should have more power. My big thing is that the president should have the federal bureaucracy as it is instituted today, and it's being broken down. A couple of Supreme Court cases last year that started to break it down. It's basically a fourth branch of a government that is kind of above the legislative and the executive at this point.
The judicial?
No, the bureaucracy.
The bureaucracy. What do you mean by the bureaucracy?
The various, the FDA, the EPA, the FBI.
Okay, in what way? Can you give me an example of where the EPA has been above the president of the United States?
Well, I'll give you an example of where the FBI is.
Okay, give me an example where the FBI has been above the president of the United States in a way that you find that they shouldn't be, to be clear.
Okay, so the FBI has basically legislative powers they can write their own laws. So they can go in and say, you violated this law that we wrote. They can audit you and say, we violated this law that we wrote, which also kind of overrides the executive. And then
Can you
say, well,
give me an
our-
example of this, like so I can chew on it a little bit? What is an example of a law that the FBI has just
not
written
the
into
FBI,
being
I
that
mean
they
the
can?
IRS. IRS, sorry.
Oh, I was like the FBI. What?
So the IRS, this was the basis of at least one case where basically the IRS was auditing people, saying, "You owe money on this, or you made these kind of withholdings that are not right," and the person will say, "Okay, well, can I get due process? Can I contest this?" And say, "Yeah, but you have to go to an IRS judge." So the judge is paid by the IRS. The IRS can, and other agencies can implement their
You
own
can't
laws.
appeal that? I don't know enough about
Yeah,
IRS to say.
that was the case. One of the two cases that really went after the federal bureaucracy last year. I can't remember the name of the case, but was about this whole idea of the a lot of the federal bureaucracies are taking Article 1 and Article 2 powers and even Article 3 powers onto themselves. A lot of it has to do with the fact that the legislator, our Congress, doesn't want to have to sit around and make a bunch of laws every week. They just want to sit around and
Look, if you want to say that the Congress has been lazy and offloaded its authority to other branches, such as the executive, I agree with you. I think that the fact that the Congress isn't legislating and is simply relying on whatever executives in power to make executive orders is a dereliction of duty. I agree with you on that. That's not something we will fight on. If that's your argument, then yeah, you're just correct.
So I'm still looking for this Mark Kelly video that he did where he basically
Yeah,
said,
please find it because I'd love to see it and see what he said, and the audience can see it too. Because I can't really judge it fairly until I hear it from his own words, right? But yeah, gang, if while he's looking for this, if you've enjoyed this conversation so far, if you've liked this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. This week we've got a pretty slow week because it's Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone has a great Turkey Day coming up, and I hope you all have family or friends at least that you can spend some time with. I will be spending time with mine on Thursday and Friday, so there will be no streams then. But tomorrow, we're going to have a call-in show. It's going to be super fun. You can call in and you can argue with me about whatever you like. We're going to have a co-host, hopefully, and that'll be fun. And then on Wednesday, I'm hosting a debate on abortion between Distill and Vibe. And so we'll find out. I don't know why everyone wants to debate abortion suddenly, but everyone wants to debate abortion suddenly. So we're going to do that.
Serious.
I'm still looking for it, but
okay,
you know
if you find it, please DM it to me, right? And I can pull it up on screen and we can see what's being said and all that, right? But at the end of the day, I just wanted to, because we are kind of winding down a little bit on this conversation, unless you have other places to go with it. But I will just say that, like, I think it's pretty clear that the ad that we saw did not violate, it did not, and I quote, and what was the quote I had? It wasn't intended to overthrow or destroy lawful civil authority. It didn't create a revolt. It didn't create violence. There wasn't really any other disturbance except for people tweeting on Twitter, and I don't think tweeting on Twitter qualifies as a disturbance that meets that criteria, right? I just, there's no definition of sedition, at least not in the UCMJ, that is met by this. I don't know.
Are we going to talk about USAID?
Do you want to?
Sure. I think I found it. He basically says he and his wife, Gabby Giffords, knows what, this is Mark Kelly, knows what political violence is. So
Yeah,
maybe
can you just link it to me so I can show it on screen and we can read it?
It wasn't as bad as I initially thought, but I'll send it to you anyways.
Please.
be.
Just DM it to me and I'll put it on screen.
I sent it to your Twitter DM.
In my Twitter DMs? Okay, give me a second.
You see. I can send it to you to the Discord.
No, the Twitter DMs works. Let me make sure I got it. Okay, maybe it won't work because I don't see it here. Let me see. But they fucked with the DMs. I hate it because they fucked with the DM. Okay, you gave me this and you sent it. You tagged me. Okay, I see it. Okay, we'll bring it up on screen. Give me a second. We'll go through it. So this is what he says. 2 months ago, Trump and Republicans were saying we need to dial back the rhetoric. Now the president himself suggests members of Congress should be hanged, and it's crickets. Now let's see what he says in the video.
Video.
What the president said is very serious. I didn't think he would step over that line, calling for the execution of members of Congress. And his words carry tremendous weight, more so than anybody else in the country, and he should be aware of that. And because of what he says, there is now an increased threats against us. I'm not going to get into, details on my personal security, but as the husband of Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, I understand what political violence is. The president should as well. Just like Gabby, somebody tried to assassinate him, and he should understand that his words could have serious consequences.
And I remember just weeks ago hearing from the president and other Republicans about the need to dial back the rhetoric after the tragic shooting of Charlie Kirk. When it comes to
what happened to that? I mean, that was 2 months ago. Yeah. Where are they now? We've heard very little, basically crickets from Republicans in the United States Congress about what the president has said about hanging members of Congress.
What's your problem with what he says here?
Well, I actually, before you played it, I said, upon kind of reviewing it.
Okay, so no, you can just say, oh, I saw it again and I misinterpreted the first time, and oh no, that was fine. Okay, that's fine.
The first time I saw it, I interpreted him saying that his wife was nearly assassinated because of politics, and it's like, no, your wife was nearly assassinated because of a crazy guy got a gun.
Yeah, he wasn't suggesting that, at least not that I saw. $10 from Alexander Rin. Can the caller comment on how he feels about the current president using social media to tell the public who they're going to go after and how they're going to do it, essentially making open threats? Go ahead.
Who to go after and how to do it?
Yes, so for example, the president saying someone should look into this Comey guy and indict him. And then the next day, indictments are brought up against Comey. That's one example, right? There's others, but we'll go with that.
I think, I voted for Trump in 2020 and 2024. I think he was the only candidate worth voting for. I'm not going to sit here and defend every single one of his actions. I think he screwed up with that DM to Pam Bondi saying, "Why aren't you indicting these people yet?" Just like I think that the head of the what is it, not the FCC, not the FEC, the guy who went after the late night comedian.
Yeah, the FCC went after Jimmy Kimmel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel after they got that
on
guy
Benny Johnson's show of all places, right?
I thought the guy should have resigned. I told you that.
Yep, I know.
I'm not MAGA. I'm not a MAGA cultist. I'm just somebody who voted for Trump who still thinks Trump is better than the alternative.
We obviously disagree on that, but we're not here to debate that. I'm simply just, again, you challenged me to debate on whether or not this was sedition, and I think we've made our points. Do you want to have any closing thoughts on that, or?
My closing thoughts is really the reason that I went into this conversation is
Go
that
ahead.
I'm really, in my view, the Democrats have always been a tough party, meaning that they love to bring out dirt, they love to fight dirty, but in the last 10 years, since Trump really walked on stage, they've gone crazy. And and in response, a lot of the right has gone crazy, especially recently. And I'm really, at this point, wanting to get to a point where we start to heal the differences to come together as a country. We can't be two warring tribes on the same land forever before something bad happens. And that's why I came into this saying both sides, curse on both their houses.
Okay, I think that I will absolutely grant you that the Democrats sometimes do fucky-wucky shit. I agree. But this time isn't one of those times. And I think it's important not to conflate, right? Just because a party has done a bad thing before doesn't mean that what they're doing now is incorrect. I think Mark Kelly and Slotkin and the other people who were in that ad did nothing wrong. And I think it should be maybe a tradition, actually. And it would be a helpful tradition if politicians from both sides of the House came together and put out joint statements like this. Like, hey, just remember, you have made an oath to the Constitution. You've made an oath to the rule of law. And disobey any unlawful orders that you may receive. I think that's a perfectly fine thing to do.
And I'll reiterate my point, which was that I don't have trouble with that. I just have trouble with the idea that there's the suggestions they're making of the situation right now.
Okay. Well, I will talk to you later, buddy. Thanks for calling in. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Maybe next time, maybe another time we can talk about USAID.
We will. Don't worry. We'll get into it, okay?
Okay.
I'll talk to you later, man.
Yep.
What do you guys think? I know it wasn't like a super fighty debate, but do you guys like those kinds of conversations? Dear Wickers, okay? Do you guys like that kind of where I just have a guy on, I hear him out, we talk about it, we have back and forth, we go through each other's arguments. I don't know, do you think that format is a good format? Do you want a more formal debate on these things? What do you want? Organizer Starve says, I like it. Do whatever makes you happy. Look, if I was doing whatever made me happy, I wouldn't make any money. Okay, I kid because I normally like what I do, right? I enjoy my show most of the times, but I don't know what you guys like. So I like this kind of format, but I also like the more 2v2, have a blood sportsy debate type of deal. I like that too. I'm okay with whatever. I just want to know what you guys like. That's all I'm asking. I don't know. I just think it's not to rehash the whole thing, but this whole thing has been a little batshit to me because I remember being told at least twice a year, like, yo, hey, you have to do a CBT, which is a computer-based training, and you have to go on and you watch these stupid videos that they put out, which basically said the same thing, right? Don't follow unlawful orders or your ass is going to go to prison. And we would go, and if we didn't do the training, they would hound us to do the training. Like if you weren't up to date with your training, they would get on your ass and you would be, okay, no, you're going to have to do all your training. And usually we do it like all in one day is what we usually do. We'd have a training day and we would get through all the CBTs and we go through all the don't rape anyone, don't commit any unlawful orders, don't do drugs, blah, 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 and don't drink or drive. That was a huge one, right? Like they would every weekend. Do you guys know this? Right? Every weekend we would have a meeting, right? And they would give us instructions on what not to do over the weekend. And we used to joke, like if they forgot to say don't rape anyone, we would say, oh, Sergeant didn't say don't rape no one, so I guess it's okay to do. And we'd make these jokes and things like that. But yeah, you got instructions on how to live your life all the time during the military. It's just, I don't know, I saw this ad initially and I didn't think it would blow up, or I didn't think it'd be a big deal. I didn't see anything wrong about it, but I guess it's now a big deal. They're opening up an investigation into Mark Kelly because of his statements here. Crazy shit. And if your argument Techlax is they're being performative, okay, I'll even grant you that. Yes, they're being performative, but they're politicians. They're allowed to. That's not seditious. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of their job to be performative a little bit. I don't know. Will Whick TV ever have a music stream? Are you wanting? I've had music. Look, I have had streams where I've sung Christmas carols. We did that Christmas Eve. No, none of you watched it because it was just me singing Christmas carols. And fair enough. Singing isn't my strong suit. I get it. I'm not judging you for that. But you asked me, like, why won't you do these music streams? Well, because none of you watch it. That's why. Natural Phenomenon says, don't you just feel like you're being lied to? It doesn't feel like they're arguing in good faith. Sometimes I do feel like this conversation, I don't think he was lying to me. I don't. But there has absolutely been people I've talked to and had conversation with that I absolutely feel like they're lying to me. I'm like, you're just pretend. Look, they do this thing where they will pretend not to know things. They will pretend not to understand basic concepts. Because if they admitted that they knew certain things or understood basic concepts, it would destroy their whole argument. So they pretend not to understand what you're saying in order to go on with their conversation. I don't think that happened here today. But I have been in positions like that where it's just 100% they're lying and they're being dishonest. But this wasn't one of those cases. Solemn says, what you're allowed to do and should do are very frequently not the same thing. That's just a true statement, yes. You are correct. Nader Hunter says, for 21, says, retired USMNC punched out as an 05. Oh, nice. Nothing that guy had to say about the UCMJ followed what I was taught over my career. You're not only allowed to disobey an illegal order, you are expected to do so. That's, yeah. You have a duty, as they say. Now, again, I just want to make it clear. I wasn't given any illegal orders during my time in the service. All the orders that they gave me were legal. But I was never on the firing lines either, right? So, you know. And we also have examples of the military, right, giving illegal orders. And unfortunately, it's never good. It's never good when that happens. But I had a couple people in the chat on YouTube side saying I was wrong. And I want to give you the chance now. Debate board, if you're still watching, if you think you can make better arguments for this, Now's your chance. Come on backstage. I'll pull you in, and you can tell me why I'm wrong. But I think my case is pretty rock solid here. They didn't do anything in that ad that amounted to sedition. The worst you can accuse them of is being performative. And that's not illegal. P01 says, I think they're arguing the service people don't have a capability to determine the legality of an order. In certain cases, you do. There are certain cases, and again, they probably won't happen because you're probably never going to get one of these. But people have gotten one of these where you're told to, like, hey, open fire on those civilians. You know that's illegal. You're taught that's illegal. They give you rules of engagement. So before any kind of operation or anything that you're engaged in, right, you will have a rules of engagement on how to handle certain situations. And they'll go over for you, like, only open fire under these conditions. You can only do X, Y, and Z. You can only do A, B, and C under these other conditions. Okay? And they'll be explicit, and there won't be a lot of questions that you have to ask at the time. But every now and again, an order comes to say, do something that is blatantly illegal, and you have a duty to say no. Nader Hunter says, I was an aviator, and honestly, if I were ordered to strike those drug boats, I would have a lot of questions in my mind. Granted, we don't know all the on-the-ground intel, can only based on what's being reported publicly. And yeah, like again, before they make these strikes, and while they're in this this theater, they have been given a briefing on what's going on and what's happening. Okay? So it's rarely you get in a situation where you have to do a lot of thinking when you're in the field. Okay? All that's been done before. Okay? But again, there is incidents and there are times. So, yeah. Not everything is illegal, Thunder Turkey. There are plenty of things that are not illegal. Karen D. Hippie says, I think you could have given him some more pushback on the No Kings issue. That is what democracy demands. Well, I thought I'd give him pretty good pushback on that. I mean, like, when you guys say I should give him more pushback, do you mean I should yell at him? Is that what you guys want? More yelling? I thought I was pretty clear with why he was wrong on that. But maybe I'm not performative enough. Maybe I need to be more yelly screamy. Is that what you guys want? I don't usually yell and scream. I don't usually get super heated. I do on occasion. And you guys have seen. But yeah, I don't usually get super heated. Roxfist says, yes, and you should push back on this is what we voted for nonsense. They often use that to justify illegal things. I mean, yeah, but he didn't really make that argument. I think he said it once, but whatever. Parallax, 35 months Twitch sub. Why? 35 months, almost 3 years. Parallax says, we mean you should stop being a fucking pussy. Grab your nuts and tell him what a stain he is on the underpants of America. Just, I don't know, man, use some of your testosterone sometimes, anytime. Thanks, Parallax. I'll take that under advisement. Okay. I did ask for examples, Robert Paulson. I asked for plenty of examples. Darwina says, I usually force people to source their claims. Man, I think it's telling if they don't. And I did ask him for sources like the Mark Kelly video or whatever he was saying. I was like, can you show me it? Can you tell me what you're talking about? I don't know. Okay. Is there anything else? Debate board, do you want to come and fight me or not? If not, we'll probably close up shop today. Again, it's going to be a slow week today. It's going to be pretty chill vibes this week because it is Thanksgiving weekend coming up. Does everyone have a place to go for Thanksgiving? I hope you do. I hope you have family or friends or someone. You shouldn't be spending holidays alone. You should find someone to spend some time with in your life. Yeah, even if it's just a buddy and you want to go hang out, right? Just I hope you all have someone. That's all I'm saying. No, Cal Mike says, LOL debate war. Yeah, well, I want to hear his arguments, okay? Natural from Mom says, my bestie's getting me drunk at her mom's. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So tomorrow will be call-ins where you, dear viewer, can call in and talk to me about whatever you like on any subject you like. We're hoping to have a co-host, but we'll see if it comes through. I hope it does, but you never know with these people, okay? Wednesday, we'll be having, and I'll be hosting and moderating a debate on abortion between Distill and Vibe on whether abortion should be legal or not, and to what extent it should be legal, under what conditions should it be legal, and what should the restrictions, if any, be on those on the legality of abortion. It should be a fun time, should be great. Tune in for that, 6 p.m. That one's gonna be a little later. It's gonna be like 6:30 p.m. Eastern, but it's around that time. Yeah, is there anything else, gang? No? Great. No Cow Mike says, Wick, you lost Tally to Malali. Great shame has been reflected on you. If she doesn't want to stream anymore with me, that's okay. I'll be okay. I guess she sees more eye to eye with Malali. That's fine. Okay. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.